Welcome to Earning Freedom and Success After Prison. I am Michael Santos with michaelsantos.com and prisonprofessor.com, always trying to provide more content and information that will inspire people who are living in struggle, who are in challenge, to begin sowing seeds for a better outcome. And one of the reasons that I feel so compelled to do so is because Masterminds inspired me through the 26 years that I served in prisons of every security level, and I am definitely passionate about sharing those lessons with other people, because if it were not for those lessons, I never would have developed the critical thinking that helped me come back successfully. And I know that it changed my life. I absolutely know that anybody who wants to change his or her life can embrace these lessons, begin developing critical thinking skills, begin developing a values-based, goal-oriented adjustment strategy that will help them get from where they are to where they want to go. And sometimes it can be difficult. It can be difficult to navigate those challenges because there's so much negativity around, and there's so many people who want to keep you, lost in the struggle. And there are so many people who want to derail your prospects for success. But Masterminds always want to help you succeed. Why? Because we know that there is an abundance of opportunity in the world, and it's never too late to begin sowing seeds for a better outcome. I'm not somebody who's just spitting out platitudes. I'm somebody who's gone through 9,500 days in prison, and as I'm going to continue reading in this book, within 2 years, I built my first $1 million worth of assets. This is not something that is simple to do, but it is something that anybody can do, provided they adhere to these same values-based, goal-oriented principles that we offer through the Earning Freedom Mastermind course. Now, if you haven't been listening to the earlier episodes, it's really easy to get them. If you're listening out here in society, you can just tune back to the earlier episodes. If you would like to read along in the book, very simple. Just visit one of my websites at michaelsantos.com or prisonprofessor.com. A pop-up will show up for your email address. Enter your best email address, and a digital copy will be sent to you instantaneously. It's just an automated process. On the other hand, if you need paperbacks or softcover books to be sent to individuals who do not have access to the web, then that's simple enough too. You can order them right through my website or through Amazon.com. Now, in the previous episode, I was speaking about the importance of developing critical thinking skills, how the decisions that guided me through prison had a direct relationship on my ability to create success outside. But simultaneously, those strategies that I learned and mastered while I was in prison, because I learned them from Masterminds and they got me through a quarter century inside, I continued using them when I came back to society. I continued using them to meet the challenges that I knew that I was going to face. In the previous episodes, I was talking about how I was going to go out and raise capital that would allow me to build this venture. And I mentioned that I anticipated, my back of the envelope math suggested that I was going to need to raise about $3 million. Why? Because I'd need to hire a staff. I'd need to pay that staff a livable wage. I'd need to get office space. I'd need to purchase equipment. I would need to invest in marketing. I would need to invest in software and technology and travel and so many other expenses. And I would need to do it over about a 2 to 3 year period before I'd really start to cross the chasm between what I wanted to do and where I was. Right? There's a theory in business. It's the hockey stick approach. You see, first you have to invest, and that hockey stick goes like this. You have to invest like this, and then you go reach the other side of that bottom portion of the stick, and then it shoots straight up. Right? It's a hockey stick approach. That's what critical thinking is about. It's about understanding that we have to invest first to build our life, to achieve a sense of credibility that we can leverage. Once we have that credibility, we can get buy-in from other people and that accelerate our growth. At least that was the strategy that I used to get through prison. That is the strategy I have been using to build my asset base when I came back to society. And now I want to continue reading and share what I was thinking after I realized, okay, I'm going to need to raise $2.5 to $3 million to build my business. I'll continue reading now on page 116 of the book. So first and foremost, I anticipated that, just to give you a recap, I was here thinking about doing the Socratic question again, wondering what would my avatars expect, thinking about what they would want from me. What would those investors want if they were going to pony up $2.5 to $3 million? I had to figure out how was I going to answer their questions. And the questions that I anticipated they were going to answer included what would they want me to answer? How could I satisfy their motivations, right? As Zig Ziglar said, help enough other people get what they want, and you can get everything you want. So I was anticipating strengths and weaknesses. I was explaining, why was I strong enough to deliver a solid message? What were my weaknesses? That's what the remainder of this chapter is about. So first and foremost, I anticipated that investors would want to know the total available market for products that I could create. As I wrote above, I envisioned a multi-billion-dollar annual market. Remember, corrections, it's an $80 billion a year industry, okay? And I thought that this was a 5% of that. The products that I wanted to create would fall into 5% of that $80 billion a year industry. That's $4 billion a year, multi-billions of dollars. I know I'm not going to get all of it, but it's a big enough market that I might be able to excite some investors. And I arrived at that number by just looking at basic data. The president said it's $80 billion a year industry. And now I really believe that our nation confines way too many people, and those people serve sentences that are way too long, and too many of them come back to society and don't succeed. So it's my job to create programs and persuade others why we should create programs that will lead to more success, rather than continuing cycles of failure. And that was effectively the message that I was delivering, the message that I was creating. So obviously, if I could build that, I would need to put an organization together. And if I put that organization together, we'd only receive a fraction of those resources of that $4 billion total available market, or estimated total available market. But if we implemented the program successfully, and we became an evidence-based program after 3 years, it would seem to me that this course could secure an average of at least 20 clients in every state for a projected estimated total of 1,000 clients, right? So I'm just doing the back of the envelope math. How am I going to justify why I need $3 million? Why would it make sense to an investor? The investor wants a return on investment. I can't tell him, hey, put up $3 million and maybe we're going to succeed. I've got to show him I've given some thought to this. Just like you've got to give some thought to what it is you want to achieve. What do your avatars want? I had to think about investors now because they were my avatars. And so I thought about that. I said, well, if I could get 1,000 clients and I could get those clients to place an average order of about $10,000 a year, well, then I'd have a business that generated $10 million in annual revenues. It's plausible, right? You build the product, you get researchers to evaluate it, they give it the blessing of evidence-based research product, meaning we can prove that those who go through this product are less likely to recidivate, less likely to engage in criminal behavior than if they didn't. Then I could more easily sell it. Then administrators would be more willing to buy it. And if you charged a relatively moderate price point of $10,000 to create it and bring it to market, and you had 1,000 clients, what do you got? You got $10 million in annual revenues. Now, I'm only projecting into the future. I'm just planning. This is how my thought process goes. I want you to use this process to solve the problems that your investors may have or your avatars may have. Visualize prospects for success and then reverse engineer what does it take to get from here to there. I knew in my case, I would need to convince others that a market existed and that the potential for upside validated the risk that would be associated with investment. I mean, after all, there was risk. Anyone who would put money into such a venture would have to wait 3 years before they would see any return on their investment. By the way, I kind of wrote this out. 3 years is a long time to wait to sow $3 million worth of seeds. But that's what they're doing. They're sowing seeds, right? So would a return on investment warrant the risk? Well, I continued to run the numbers. Wasn't important what I thought, what I said. What was important is what did the data show? So I've got I'm starting with some hypotheses. I'm starting with just some guesses, and I'm very transparent about all of this, but it's how I think. Since we would be creating digital products, like I'm doing right here, gross profit margins would likely exceed 70%. I mean, it costs a lot of money to set all of this up, but once it's all set up, then the costs of production are significantly drop. That hockey stick approach that I spoke about earlier. So after all, once I produced a product, the cost of productions would really drop. Based on estimates of $10 million in revenues, the company should generate north of $7 million in annual profits after year 3. That's what I estimated, right? 30% costs of goods sold. So with those numbers, it would seem to me that investors might be willing to provide $3 million in funding in exchange for 50% of a company that we would create. Okay, I'd say, okay, I'll give you 50% of this company. And such an equity split would return all investment capital within 5 years, right? 3 years, you start selling. You're doing $10 million a year. You're generating $7 million in profits. After some other incidental costs, within 5 years, the people who put up 50% of the money, or the $3 million, they'd have all their money back, plus profits. And they'd also still own 50% of a growing company. So that suggested, well, maybe it makes sense to go out and try and raise this capital. That's what I started to think. Those are the questions. But those were the strengths. What were the weaknesses? You see, despite the promise that I saw, I suspected that investors would view the opportunity from a different perspective. I mean, an infinite number of opportunities competed for their attention and their money. So although the Straight A Guide course that I was thinking about offered a great social good, I mean, it would help people who were in struggle, people who were living on the margins, people who filled our nation's prison system. It would help them help themselves. The business venture had the potential for generating lasting profits and growing market that was poised. Investors would still perceive risks. And I started to anticipate, okay, what objections are they going to have? Why would they resist me? Before I go into the market, I've got to ask all of these questions. This is my Socratic questioning approach. It's trying to figure out the game plan before I get out there, right? You're a coach, and you're looking at the strength of the other team, and you're figuring out, how am I going to do it? It's not always the biggest and the fastest that wins. It's the one who prepares himself the best. It's the one who creates the best strategy. And how do you create that strategy? By asking the right questions, by understanding what are they going to want, what are they going to fear? Greed and fear. How am I going to, they're going to fear losing their money, right? And so I started thinking, okay, how am I going to solve that? Well, I got to think, what questions are they going to ask me? I started asking, if I'm an investor, what would I ask? What? If you were asking us to invest $3 million for a 50% stake in your company, you're implying that you're going to keep the other 50%, which means you think the company's worth $6 million. I'd say that's right. Well, what experience do you have in overseeing ventures with this level of complexity? I wouldn't be able to satisfy that, right? I mean, I just finished prison 2 years ago, a year and a half ago at this time. I mean, I can't say I've run a $6 million entity before. All I've ever run is my own life. My own life has been one of struggle and complication and difficulty, and I've managed to overcome all of that, but I've never run a $6 million venture, and I couldn't pretend that I did. That was a problem. I thought about that. Here's another problem. If prison administrators resist buying from a convicted felon now, what makes you think that they'll be more inclined to purchase products you create 3 years from now? Well, I had a belief that I would know what it could do. I had a belief that it could do something, but I wasn't sure. I didn't know for certain. So that was a problem. Thought if I got evidence-based, but maybe I won't get evidence-based. I don't know. It's an investment. It's a risk. What track record do you have for returning capital to investors? That might be another one. Well, that's another problem. So I had to figure these things out because I don't have a track record of returning capital to investors. Not money. I expected to build one, but I haven't done it. And until you've done it, you're nothing but happy talk. I can plan as much as I want, but I've never delivered. And those were realities. That was my weakness. So the more Socratic questions I asked, anticipating what my avatars would expect, the more I realized that I wasn't yet ready to go out into the marketplace and try and raise $3 million in venture capital from sophisticated investors. I'd need to run a business before. I'd need to do something else. I mean, I'd never managed a group of professionals, and here I was talking about going out into the marketplace and hiring professionals with a $300,000 payroll and renting space and buying computers and buying technology. I didn't have a track record for doing that or for doing it effectively. So although I believed a growing market existed, and I believed that there was a demonstrated value on the need for these types of programs, the weakness was I didn't really have the experience to come through. Not at that time. Just like when I started in my prison sentence, I wasn't ready to go out and ask for sponsors to believe in me. I wasn't ready to have people start investing financially in me when I started my prison term. I had to start slowly. I had to sow seeds. I had to assess the complications of every decision I made. And I had to figure out, how am I going to navigate my way through all of these challenges so that I can come back successfully? And every single decision had implications associated with it. Where I worked, where I slept, where I ate, what I did with my free time, what books I read, what letters I wrote, what time I went to sleep, what time I woke up, how I exercised. Every single decision had a relationship to what I wanted to become. And I assure you that every decision that you make has a relationship to what you should become. Every single one of them. If you're watching this program right now inside of a prison or a jail or a school, you are taking the personal investment to say, I want to change my life. I want to be better. I want to learn from masterminds like Socrates. Okay? I want to learn from masterminds like Martin Luther King, like Malcolm X, like so many other people who faced struggle and yet found the way to live a life of meaning and fulfillment and relevance, to live with dignity even though they're in an institution that may feel as though it's extinguishing hope. I mean, there's no better example than Nelson Mandela. I mean, he served 27 years in prison without hope. And yet while he was in there, he managed to maintain a positive attitude. And when he got released, he didn't have any bitterness or anger toward anyone. All he wanted to do was contribute to the making of a better world. And that's why the world reveres him. You may have had struggle and difficulty in your life. And you may be in an environment right now that feels so crushing of your spirit. My job is to show you you can break through. That's what success after prison is all about. You can break through and come back not to a life of mediocrity and squalor. You start making the right decisions right now, and you can follow this path. Within a couple of years, be controlling assets worth $1 million. That may not be how you define success. I don't do it because I want to live a profligate life. I do it because I want to earn your trust, and I want to be authentic. I want to show you that if you sow the seeds, if you do the work, success is coming your way. We all face struggle, but we can all overcome it. And now is the time. Now is the time to seize the initiative, sow the seeds, prepare yourself for success. And I am hopeful that you find some value in this message that we provide through the Earning Freedom podcasts, the Earning Freedom Library, Success After Prison episodes, literature that we produce. Everything we produce is specifically to show you a lesson. You have the power within to change your life. And I hope you'll start using it today. If you want previous episodes, it's so simple to get. If you're outside, just go to any of my social media websites. I hope that you'll subscribe to the show, rate and review the show. If you want a free digital copy of the book, again, just visit michaelsantos.com, enter your email address, and I'll send you one immediately today. I am Michael with michaelsantos.com. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode of Success After Prison. Thank you.